Exclusive buyer agency agreement. That's what we're going to be covering today. Hey guys, my name is Sunny. I am with Realty One Group Affinity in Jacksonville, North Carolina, and today we are going to talk about the exclusive buyer agency agreement. This form is basically something that we are going to sign when you decide that we are going to work together. And just so you know, before we cross any threshold of a home, I have to have this signed by both of us. So the way it will work is you will come to an agreement with Realty One Group, and that's the firm that I work for, and we will sign off that we decided on what day we will begin this agreement, and we can also decide what day we want to end this agreement. So it could be 6 months, it could be 12 months, it just really depends on how long it is going to have to take to find the right home, and of course we can adjust it as needed. We always decide on the area, and it may be that you only want me to represent you in Onslow County, and you may have another agent in another county. I do personally work in Onslow County, Carteret, Pender, Duplin, Jones, and Craven County, and sometimes in New Hanover County. These are the counties that I am most familiar with, and we can decide what we want to work with. Then we have to decide on the compensation of the firm. I always have it in my buyer agency agreement to sign at 3%. So what that means is when the property closes, I expect to receive 3% of the purchase price. Now, sellers traditionally have paid commission. It's been built into the purchase price. Sellers have usually paid the commission out of the seller's net. So if the seller is offering less than 3%, that's when you and I may have to have a conversation. If it's 2.5%, we may come back and modify this agreement and do 2.5%. If we've been working together for over a year, it might be that I ask you to pay that other 0.5%. The good news is it's all negotiable. So we will discuss it and do whatever is best for you and your family. I want you to know that I am in the business to get families into homes, and I am going to do my part to make sure that that happens. There's another place where I'll have you initial on the form that you understand that my services are not free, and more than likely the compensation will be part of the purchase price, but it may not be. Also, again, we will have those conversations so that you understand completely what's going on. There is a section in there that says that the real estate compensation is not fixed by law, and it is set by each broker individually, and it's all negotiable. Next is the firm's duties and my duties. My duties are to look after you and make sure that you find the best property for you at the best price and the best terms, and do as much investigation before you even put a non-refundable due diligence money on that property to make sure that you are making a good decision. Please know anything that you tell me will be confidential, even the fact that you're buying a home. That is not something that I disclose with other people, even if we're all friends. I just keep that to myself. Of course, I'm going to take care of you and make sure that you end up in the right property for you. The next thing I want to discuss are the personal letters. Sometimes a buyer, if it's a really competitive situation with a property that a buyer really wants, they will want to write a letter and explain why they want to purchase this home and why it'll be such a good fit for their family, which is very lovely. It does really pull at the heartstrings. However, sometimes it can violate state and federal fair housing laws. So we have to be very careful about that. So the buyer duties. Your duties are to make sure that you are available so that you can see properties. You need to make sure that you are ready to work with your lender, or you have your proof of funds ready. You have to do your part to make sure that we can get into the best home possible. And just know that when we do our inspections, I'm also going to want you to do another type of consultation with other professionals. That may be an accountant, it may be a survey. We absolutely will do a home inspection, and that also could lead to a roof inspection, an HVAC inspection, structural engineer. There's all kinds of things that can come up whenever we start to do a home inspection. So I will be your point of contact, but I also want to encourage you to use other professionals as well. I always give you a sample offer to purchase for you to review and ask if you have any questions on it. And then I'm also going to give you a sample copy of a professional service and disclosure, which is a form that we will sign, and it essentially walks you through all of the different service providers that we're going to use in a transaction, and you'll understand who orders what and when and where. The next thing is all of your offers that you make on a property are going to be confidential. And I encourage you to also not tell your neighbors or your friends, because you never know who knows someone else and they may be interested in that property as well. So it's always important to keep these things confidential. No one needs to know what the purchase price is until it records and it is a matter of public record. The next thing that we're going to cover is dual agency. So when you buy a property that Realty One Group has listed, that would be a dual agency for the firm, which means that the listing agent works for Realty One Group, and I also work for Realty One Group. So Realty One Group would receive a portion of the compensation on each side of that transaction. I always have you initial that you are okay with dual agency, which means that you are okay to buy a Realty One Group listing, and that you also understand that I do practice dual agency. There's a part in here also on page 1. Under it, it says, if there's a dual agency compensation, which means that Realty One Group has the listing, I'm representing you as the buyer with Realty One Group, they expect to get 6%. That's pretty much industry standards. However, remember I mentioned that everything is negotiable. So even though that's what's going to be in the form, it doesn't specifically say that this will in no way affect or modify the amount of the fee set forth in paragraph 4. The firm expects to receive the services and representing the buyer under this agreement, so it's just something that is part of the agreement that I have to put in, and I have to put something in there, and that's the part that is traditionally, that's what it's been. And again, it may be less and it is negotiable. When we are walking through a home, I want you to understand that there is a good chance that they may have cameras and may be listening. Technically, they're supposed to tell us, but I just want to tell you so that you are aware that when we are walking through a property, be cautious of your body language and what you say, because we don't want to give away too much. If you are really excited about the property, we want to try to be able to still negotiate if it's possible. So just be aware, even when we walk up to the Ring doorbell, typically they're listening right off the bat. So I sometimes will say, hello. If you're in the home and you're wanting to photograph or do videos, usually they will prohibit it and they will tell us beforehand. But if not, you are allowed to take some photos and videos, because I know you may want to send some to your family or maybe a friend, and you may do that. However, we need to just be doing what is in plain sight. You would never open a drawer or a cabinet or take a photo of something that is not accessible to us. That's just not acceptable. So just keep that in mind, but you are, if it's allowed, to do video or take photos of something that is in plain sight. The last thing that we're going to cover is wire fraud. So when it comes down to closing on the property, you are going to be required to wire the funds for closing to the attorney's office. I will never send you these documents or instructions. My transaction coordinator will never send you these instructions. Only the attorney's office. What I expect a buyer to do, and I always explain this, is I want you to call the attorney's office to verify the instructions. Then when you go to the bank to do the actual wire, I want you to call and verify just to double check, because we are going to cross the T's and dot the I's and be a little bit over dramatic here, just to make sure that the funds are indeed going to the attorney's office, because wire fraud, unfortunately, is real and something that we have to deal with. The rest of the last page is where you sign, and we're ready to roll and start looking for homes. So if you are ready to start looking for homes, I would love to be able to assist you and serve you. And also, if you have any other tips about the home buying process, leave those below. I'd love to hear them. Thanks so much for watching, and we will catch you next time.